Apple drops mail plugin support in Sonoma, and Silo hits the big time. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Notion. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects at notion.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV for MacVoices Live. We would love to have you join us in the chat room. We've got some people in there already, and I'm sure that more will be joining us. So if you aren't with us tonight, don't worry, you aren't going to miss anything because this will show up eventually in the MacVoices feed. But we definitely much rather have you here live because it's a whole lot more fun when you're throwing comments and questions in the chat room and we get to respond to those like a bunch of trained seals. If the shoe fits, you know. I don't know what that was, Webb. Let's go around the room and see who's here tonight, and we'll get this off the ground. So taking my screen, everything is all confused tonight. First up, Mr. Jim Ray, sporting a Moof t-shirt. Jim, good to have you.
Moof.
A man of few words, as usual. David Ginsburg has traded the left side of my screen for the right, up in the corner. David, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you, Chuck. Some good things to not talk about tonight. And without Jeff, we're going to keep this orderly this week tonight.
Mm-hmm. I have my doubts. Ben Roethig is here with a tie. Ben, it's good to see you, but I mean, you really don't need to put that on for this show.
Hey, you know what they say? Dress for the job you want. And I want Webb's executive job.
I see. Got it. Brian Flanigan-Arthurs is here. The beard is filling out, and he graduated a bunch of people today. Brian, great to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Did the graduation go smoothly?
It did. Yeah, it was very nice.
Good. Well, that's good. Well, I'm sure you sent some out into the cold, cruel world with at least a little bit of knowledge.
Just a little bit.
Just a little. Last but absolutely not least, in a blazing blue shirt, Mr. Web Bixby. Web, it's great to see you. I need my shades.
Yeah, sorry. Chuck, good to be here. And Ben, some days you can have my job. And this almost was one of them. So,
oh, should we ask?
No.
Okay, we won't. Let's get into some stuff, but let's change it up. Instead of just hitting some of the hottest topics, I want to do a few Apple topics today that showed up. I got to find the chat. Sorry, that showed up this week. The first one is that Sonoma will drop legacy mail plugins for Apple Mail. And I know a few people that are more than a little upset over this because they live and die by some of the third-party mail plugins. Yeah. I don't know if that applies to anybody here. It doesn't for me because I don't use Apple Mail. I use Gmail and Mimecast. But how about you all? Does this bother you? Is this something that's going to affect your life?
It doesn't affect me because I use Edison Mail. However, the currently not present Jeff Gamet, this is throwing a giant curveball for him.
Yep.
Jeff, I think, was one. Dave Hamilton is one. Our friend over at MacGeekGab. I feel like there's some lessons here. One of which is that if you're that dependent on any third-party application, you should always have a backup of some kind. I want to be fair. I'm not sure there really is a good Apple specific backup that is not dependent on something in the operating system. So
I don't understand what you're saying, Chuck. It sounds like you're saying don't use extensions to Apple products.
Not necessarily, Jim, but just that I just want you to, if you're going to be dependent on them, you just have a plan B. Just, in case.
Nobody's going to be locked out of their email. They're just going to, not going to be able to use their convenient workflows that they were used to.
Right. And, but some folks will tell you those workflows are essential, that, that's the only way they can do them. Web?
Oh, I was just going to say, I do use Apple Mail. That is my primary mail client. And I've tried some of the other extensions and add-ons, plugins for Apple Mail. I didn't have any success with them. Maybe I didn't give them enough time to kind of flesh them out, but one way or the other, I didn't like it. But my IT people really want me to go to Outlook, but I really dislike Outlook on the Mac and especially on the iPhone. So that's why I kind of stick with the Apple platforms for that. So anyway, I'm not worried about it. I do kind of wish that Jeff or some of the other people that we know that are dependent on them, who probably have a much better workflows than I do. It would be interesting to hear what they have to say. So I can't wait for them to share their voices on MacVoices. So
I think that, for something like email, I mean, you're dependent on somebody for something. For example, right now I'm using MimeStream, and I really like it. It's a great app. They just went 1.0, ended their beta and went 1.0 in the last 2-3 weeks. But that's an app that is dependent on Gmail's API. And we've all seen what large companies can do with their APIs recently. In fact, for many years, I used an app called MailPlane, which also was a Gmail, and it didn't even use an API. It basically put a web browser inside the app and then had some special stuff to, make it way more convenient than using the web app for Gmail. And, that was a great app that I used for close to 10 years. And then Google stopped allowing their web interface to work in anything other than an official web browser. So Google essentially shut down that app. So, it seems like any kind of API, you're at the mercy of these API vendors. And in this case, we're talking about the API that Apple provided for the Mail app. And, to me, that's kind of the story here, is that, Apple had this sort of, it wasn't an unofficial API, but it wasn't really intentional. It was built out of, how Objective-C worked and stuff, but they did encourage people to use it. And then they decided, okay, wait, this is a security hole. We're going to patch that up so that, and they built a new API, official API for Mail, but then didn't put the functionality in that the old API had, so that it was impossible for these vendors to update their products. What the heck?
I had a question about that. Oh,
yeah. Go, Brian, go.
Oh, I was just saying, I was reading that same point there about how the new API, I guess, is limited functionality compared to what used to be in place. Is it possible that it's more of a version 1.0 and that additional functionality may come down the road, or is it just the structure of it? It's kind of like locked out.
No, it's up to Apple. Like, for example, a few years ago, remember they gutted the AppleScript support in all the iWork apps, and there were a lot of people that were, like, oh my gosh, I had all these workflows based on AppleScript support for those apps, and Apple got rid of it because they rewrote the apps, and they eventually put all that back. But it's basically it's a management decision. It's not a technical decision. It's, management has to decide that they're going to put resources into it. And this was a management decision that they decided, we don't care about people using extensions. So we're not going to put the effort into that.
So, Jim, my email history is pretty much mirrors yours. I was using Mailplane as well. I love Mailplane. I interviewed the developers at Macworld.
Really nice guys.
Yeah, really nice guys. A couple of times. So I was distressed when Mailplane was going away. Then, and I think I said Mimecast. I'm sorry, I meant MimeStream. That's what I'm using, and it is. You're right. It's a terrific app. And I very much enjoy it. And
Neil is also a really nice guy. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last few months.
Yeah. So, there are some, if you're a Gmail user, there's some decent alternatives out there. I can't speak to the API part because I'm not a developer, but Jim, you brought up the fact that, they shut some of this down because of security, which is, that's a legitimate thing. What I can't speak to is how much functionality could be put back in without opening those same security holes.
Well,
that's
what they had was a system that wasn't really an API. It was just that Objective-C had this thing. Remember, we used to have Haxies and stuff like that. Objective-C is sort of extensible by default. And, Apple has gradually closed that off, but in Mail, they had left that open to some extent. So the API that Mail had was not so much an intentional API that Apple designed as, more that people were able to go in and reverse engineer how the classes inside Mail worked and, access it that way. So then Apple was like, okay, we're going to shut that down. I think that probably was a good idea on two fronts, sort of related. One is this, it could be a security issue. And also I'm sure they're moving to Swift, and Swift doesn't work the same way. So that kind of extension is not possible. So, that was probably precluding them from redoing some parts of Mail in Swift. But so then they're like, but now there's this established, API marketplace and vendors and whatnot and people using it. It would have been awfully nice if Apple had, looked at that and said, okay, how can we, they don't have to open, the door wide open, but look at what these people are doing, maybe even talk to them, what do you need? But, they didn't do that.
Brad in the chat room says that something called letter opener will be missed. That tnefs enough is a manual substitute. So I am not familiar with tnefs enough. I have no idea what it is or what it's a substitute for. Brad, if you can elaborate on that, I'll report whatever your answer is.
I haven't heard of that one either.
Yeah, he brings up SpamSieve. I don't know if SpamSieve relied on some of those APIs or not, since it functions with such a broad range of mail clients. So, but that would be another potential one that might.
TNEFs enough allows Macs to read and extract files from Microsoft TNEF stream files, usually received by SMTP-based email programs.
Okay.
I don't. Providing a windmail.dat solution to the Mac community.
Oh, well, there you go. Windmail. Webb, I'm with you. I dislike Outlook passionately, but I have to use it.
Same here. I have to use it.
I guess maybe.
Oh, you have to use it, David?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jim.
I was going to say, it sounds like maybe that's a program that allows you to use Apple Mail when you're interoperating with Outlook users. It makes it, maybe that's what it is.
I don't know. But yeah, so and Web, Outlook on the Mac is is, I guess, tolerable. Outlook on iOS, though, is just, I mean, it's sad.
They keep changing it. That's the thing. The problem with Outlook for iOS, it's just like every other day. I seem like, what's this button? I think what was the last thing I saw on here was just some thing of composing a message. It's like all of a sudden this button's down here. I'm like, what the heck is this? I think it was like a what was it? It was like a new email, like a big green, a big blue button here. You can just tap it and you have access to your use voice, Teams call, book work event, new message, and it's all. They think that this button here floating is going to give you ease of use.
I don't want to take us too far off, but yeah, David, I saw that, and it's like this just feels like such a Microsoft thing that they're trying to pack everything into one app, and have it all at the top level, and it just all it does is confuse you. I mean, and
Yep.
If you almost have to draw yourself out of flowchart, and the trouble is by next Tuesday that flowchart will need to be revised because they've changed something. So. Yeah, avoid Outlook. So, I mean, the Apple Mail thing, it'll be interesting to watch as time goes on and see how much of a clamor there is, see if folks can find a workaround or if it just means you're going to have to go to a whole new mail client to accomplish what you've been doing with Apple Mail.
I haven't dabbled in any of the third-party apps, just so for me. I mean, I've the third-party plugins, I should say. I mean, I use Apple Mail just so I stay on top of things and just use it as an additional workflow for email. But I use Outlook only because I have to stay familiar with it, and I use those two only because of that reason. So,
yeah. Ben, what's your email client of choice?
Edison Mail.
Oh, that's right. You did say what? Tell us about Edison Mail. I know of it, but I'm not familiar at all with what the benefits of it are.
For me, it's just that it works. I've had issues with Apple Mail. Unfortunately, I started having a few issues with Spark. This Edison Mail was suggested to me by Patrice Brendamore, who also uses it, and I'm happy with it. It just works as email.
Hey, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Brian, how about you? What do you use, or do you have to use?
Well, I actually am embarrassed to say probably the one I use most is actually Outlook. But I'm listening to these different suggestions, and I'm going to have to give them a try. I do use Apple Mail on a lesser occasion, but yeah, both for work purposes, I do use Outlook. But then personally, I had started using Outlook, the web-based version, for a long time, and then started using it on the phone. And I actually don't have too many complaints, although I'm not composing messages too often on the personal side of things. Mm-hmm. So from the iOS point of view, for reading messages, it's not too bad. However, for work purposes, I mostly use the desktop client, and have had, it works fine.
Okay, well, hey, that's it all depends on what works for you. If it's sufficient for what you do, that's great.
Yeah.
I will just add that I do have to use Outlook whenever I want to establish server-based rules. It's a lot easier to do it on the web client, especially on Outlook, as opposed to in the Mac client. And forget it, trying to set those up in Apple Mail. Two different worlds. So I do use it on some occasions, but my mail client of choice is still Apple Mail.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Notion. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects at notion.com/MacVoices. Project management is a necessary evil, but sometimes that's because you're jumping between tabs at best and different programs or services at worst. But now you don't have to any longer. Today, I'm excited to share that Notion has just launched Notion Projects, which includes new powerful ways to manage projects and leverage the power of their built-in AI features too. Notion Projects combines project management with your docs, knowledge base, and AI features too. so you can stop jumping between tools and stop paying too much for them too. Notion is super customizable as well. View projects in any way you like, as a timeline, table, or Kanban board. There's also powerful filtering and automation features, so you can work exactly the way you want. I've been using Notion's integrated AI to improve my project descriptions and communication. It really makes a difference when you're having trouble finding just the right words for a complex description. And if you don't like the first suggestion, just try it again. Do your most efficient work with Notion projects. You can try it for free today at notion.com/MacVoices. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacVoices. When you use my link, you're supporting my show. Go right now to notion.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Notion for supporting MacVoices. Yeah, Brad says Apple Mail for some people have had problems with MS Exchange, and MS Outlook worked for them.
Right.
So, I don't know, David, is that?
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's why a lot of companies block it. They don't want, people who use Macs on their enterprise environment don't want it to be used because it's, it's not a good thing for support, as well as in the world of Exchange, and you're doing Exchange online. There's no Exchange servers these days. It's going to be a challenge to get it to work properly. I've tried it before it's blocked for me. So, but I mean, Outlook in itself works fine in the enterprise. I mean, I have to use it on both Mac and on Windows. Mm-hmm. There's obviously more advantages on Windows, having access to address books and things like that I need, especially managing distribution lists and that kind of thing in that environment. But for the most part, I mean, I try to live on a Mac 100% of the time and for work. And let's put it this way, there's challenges. I mean, I'll give you a good example on the Mac side. You got the MSG extension when you save an email, and then you have the EML extension. Can't open MSG files on a Mac. You have to go elsewhere. Or my workaround is go to the web-based version of Outlook for work and add it as an attachment and then open it. I'm resisting so much to not have to go to my PC to look at it that I'll do a workaround like that. But I don't understand that piece of, on the Mac side, why you can't open MSG file extension, which is an email that's saved.
So is it a matter of making Apple Mail work with Microsoft? You said it's difficult to get it to make work. Is that Apple's fault, or is that Microsoft's fault, or is it somewhere in between? Probably
a combination of both. Yeah, as I say, combination of both. He answered it even quicker for me, because I've attempted to get it configured before, trying to get to it, getting to the server, trying to work, and it works for the most part. It just doesn't behave properly.
I mean, wouldn't it be great if there was a plugin that handled that .ms? Sorry.
Oh yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I'm sure you experience it. Web with you, because you are using Apple Mail in an enterprise environment, and I'm sure you have plenty of challenges, and you're calling your help desk and like, why isn't this working? And they're saying, switch to Outlook, right?
And I say, you got to find another solution. So.
And especially I'm the head of this company. I want you to find a solution.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. But whatever email client you use, if it works for you, great. If not, there are a lot of options out there. And
there is
on iOS and Mac, and web-based solutions. Just like David was saying, there's nothing wrong with a web-based solution if that's the way you want to go. So go out and experiment a little bit. Next item I had is more of a fun one, I guess. And that is that at the Apple TV show Silo has been renewed for a second season, and a whole bunch of articles in the last couple of weeks have pointed this out as one of the top shows for Apple TV, as well as just one of the top shows, period. And I'm curious to see, is anybody here following that or watching it?
Oh yes,
I love it.
Yeah. In fact, I just watched it about an hour before the show, the latest episode.
So good.
Yeah. I want to ask you which one, Ben, because I think I'm caught up, but I'm not sure. But anyway, don't say. Don't spoil. Don't spoil.
I was going to say the episode that Common was really good as the bad guy, but that's all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think we've talked about this on the show before, but I've kind of burned out on the whole post-apocalyptic things. But this one caught my attention, and it's really, really, really well done. And so if you haven't tried it out, go check it out. This is another one of those that there's a good reason that it's rising to the top of the charts. So it's Apple TV, and so it's great. Brian, I saw that you responded positively that you're into it.
Yeah, I love this show. I'm into video games too, and one of the things that sparked my interest when I saw the original previews, if anyone's a fan of the video game Fallout series, like with the vaults and everything, and not being able to experience the real world outside the vault without equipment, it kind of made me think, oh, this is kind of like that. And the show kind of takes different twists and turns that I think takes it away from that aspect a little bit. But that's what initially gained my interest. But it's fantastic. Just the way that it every episode just unravels a different piece of the story and a different aspect to see. I love it. I really, and I heard it's being based off of a book. I'm really hoping, or a series of books. I'm just really hoping that it's it has a great endpoint in mind, that type of thing, that doesn't just kind of ravel into. There's shows like, in my opinion, Lost. How Lost just kind of went out there a little bit. Those first season or two. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, first couple seasons are phenomenal, and then what happened? Yeah,
I never could get into that show, Lost.
Yeah, those are hours I'll never get back. Yeah, they're lost. Yeah,
yeah. I'll try. I tried a couple times, and I never could catch me. And then after everything that happened, and I mean, the way that I guess it came to an end, everybody was complaining. It's like, well, I'm glad I didn't waste my time on that. Yeah. So.
No, it's great to see Apple TV Plus is just more and more titles. Seems like daily, good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, between Silo, Foundation, Severance, they have some shows that you really, if you're into that kind of serious drama, they're really gripping.
Yep.
Was anybody here a fan of at any level of C?
I started liking the last season the most, I think. And I think by that point it may have already been decided that it wasn't coming back after that. But the first season was a little out there for me.
I felt like the first season, the last episode of the first season brought me back to season 2, and from there, a couple places it was a little bit slow, but I'm with you, Brian. At the third season, it felt like it finally got the right pace, and you wanted to see what was going to happen next time. So, if you're looking for something that is already finished, and I felt like it wrapped it up with a reasonably decent ending. I think it's good. Just be prepared. It's going to start out a little slow because you sort of have to learn about their world, and before you kind of lock into it. Anything else on Apple TV before we go? Any other shows that are hot or?
I've been getting into Platonic. I've been liking that show. It's a comedy with Seth Rogen, Rose Byrne. Not everybody's liked it, but I find it enjoyable.
It's on my queue.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out.
It's had mixed reviews, but I'm enjoying it.
I think Seth one Rogen that's coming up
cracks me up.
I was going to say one that's coming up for season 2, I think pretty soon, is After Party. And I really like the first season. So as people prepare maybe for season 2 to watch, if you haven't seen season 1, it's enjoyable. Every episode's its own
also,
kind of genre.
yeah, there's also that one with Maya Rudolph that's coming back.
Oh yeah,
Where she's the divorcee who has the foundation. God, I forget the name of it.
Is it Limit? I was called that.
Oh, I'm forgetting it too. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
This is the interesting thing about Apple TV, though. Now you all brought up After Party. I have no idea what After Party is. It hasn't caught my attention. I haven't seen enough promotion about it.
Loot. That's it.
Loot.
Yes,
What
Loot.
Loot.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say for After Party, a good analogy might be the movie Clue, like the whodunit type.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with a comical twist to it.
Well, yeah, that's not what I was expecting with that name. I thought it would be kind of more like the Bridesmaids type comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So just go over to Apple TV. You're bound to find something you will like.
Yeah.
I know Foundation's coming back for the second season here in is it a month or so? I guess.
Just middle of July, I think.
Mid-July. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming up, and
he's worried with this writer strike. It keeps going on. It's going to be a trouble.
Yeah. Well, I just saw today, and I don't have a link for it, but I saw a piece that apparently Tim Cook is pushing for a Ted Lasso season 4.
Is he?
Which would be interesting. And
I saw Brendan Hunt mention that in an interview.
Yeah, in a way, I mean, that would be great. In a way, I almost feel like they ended it so well that I'd hate to see it happen. So,
from what I hear, there might be 2 spinoffs, one about Ted back home, and another about the Richmond football team with the current set of characters.
well,
Sometimes the spin-offs do well. Cheers and Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ladderwitch is coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry with the cast was so good that you wonder if you remove some of those pieces, if it all comes crumbling down, or if it just restructures itself. So we'll see. Yeah. I feel like we almost have to touch on, this is not necessarily Apple, but I think it's important. The whole Reddit drama. Now we have hackers involved, demanding $45 million, and that the API changes be rolled back, or they will leak 80 gigs of data.
That's it? That much data?
Well, but keep in mind that so much of Reddit is text.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 80 gigs, could be a whole, and I've not seen it said anywhere exactly what that could be, or what that data might include. You would assume there's got to be some privacy stuff there.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Who knows? It might even include Mark Fuccio.
It's possible. Speak of the devil.
Looks like Where's Waldo?
Hello, Mark.
Or a Disney film in the background.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Ben. Brian, Jim.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Mark.
Love the background.
David. Hello, Web. Oh, yeah, David's there in the center.
Yeah, he's out of space. Out of place.
I'm late. I didn't see anything, and then I just checked a little while ago and saw that there was a late invitation sent out. My Slack must have been slow.
Yeah, no problem. Mark, if you can give us a little more volume, it'd be great if that's possible.
I'll try getting closer to the mic. How is that?
That's much better. Much better.
Okay, good.
Yeah. We're just discussing the Slack situation, the ransom demands and
Reddit.
Or what did I say? Slack. Yeah, sorry. Yes, scratch that. Reddit. Nothing wrong with Slack. Slack is under control.
We love Slack.
We love Slack. It's Reddit that seems to be having issues, and of course, this whole thing happened after the big blackout.
Yes.
But I do have a question, and I was not able to readily find an answer when I thought of this. how much control do, I guess, the sysops, or I forget now what they call them on Reddit.
Moderators.
Thank you. Yes. How much control do the moderators have? And what I mean by that is they obviously have the ability to black out, or make private their forums. The question I had, though, is it possible for Reddit itself to say, you know what? We don't want any of our forums closed, and you can't close the moderator, so we're just going to open them right back up against your wishes and against your will?
Theoretically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That said, when you're a service that is entirely based on user-generated content, ultimately alienating their user base could cost them the company.
Well, they're doing a pretty good job of that right now.
Like I said, CEO doesn't seem to be too worried about that.
Next time on MacVoices, the panel continues their examination of the conflict between Reddit's management and its users. That's next time on MacVoices. I'll see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.